Hello, and welcome to this video on independent and dependent clauses. In this presentation, you'll learn what independent and dependent clauses are and how to recognize them. You'll also see what purposes they serve and how to avoid common mistakes with them. In grammar, the word clause indicates a group of words with at least one subject and at least one verb. There are two main branches on the clause family tree: the independent clause, sometimes referred to as a main clause, and the dependent clause, also known as a subordinate clause. I'll use the terms independent or main and dependent or subordinate interchangeably in this video. So, what's the difference between the two kinds of clauses? Well, an independent clause contains at least one subject and at least one verb and can stand alone as a complete sentence. The sun shone brightly is an independent clause, as is the air was cool. These groups of words meet all the requirements for a clause, so they are punctuated as stand-alone sentences. By the way, I'm making subjects red and verbs green so you can see them clearly. Words and phrases can be added to the group. As long as we don't add any more subject-verb relationships, we can still call them independent clauses. In the sentence, "On the morning of the hike, the sun shone brightly," there's an introductory phrase, "on the morning of the hike." But taken all together, the group is still an independent clause. A single independent clause is also known as a simple sentence. Two or more independent clauses joined together are called a compound sentence. A group of words called coordinators are typically used to join independent clauses in compound sentences. The most common coordinators are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Your choice of coordinators will depend on the relationship you want to express. The acronym FANBOYS can help you remember the common coordinators: for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. FANBOYS. Usually, you'll need to insert a comma after the first clause, right before the coordinator. The sun shone brightly on the morning of the hike, comma, and the air was cool. It's a proper sentence. Now let's look at subordinate or dependent clauses. Dependent or subordinate clauses do not express complete thoughts on their own and therefore cannot be punctuated as sentences. Before the sun set is a dependent clause. It has a subject and a verb, but it does not express a complete thought. In fact, it leaves us wondering what happened before the sun set. It's the same with after the campfire went out. Readers aren't satisfied. We want to know what happened after the campfire went out. These dependent clauses cannot be punctuated as sentences. If we treat them like sentences, we've made a mistake. Unlike independent clauses, dependent clauses begin with certain markers called subordinators. A few examples are before, after, since, while, although, if, as soon as, and that. I'll tell you more about them in a minute. First, see if you can tell which of the following groups of words are independent clauses and which are dependent. A. The group of friends got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to begin their ascent of Mount Precarious. B. As soon as they had eaten a hearty breakfast of sausage and eggs. C. While the group leader gave a brief orientation to the day's hike. And D. With heavy packs and high hopes, the hikers fell into single file behind the point person. If you think A and D are independent clauses, you're right. B and C are dependent or subordinate clauses and should not be punctuated as sentences because they're not. There's something else you should know about dependent clauses. They come in three flavors: adjective, adverb, and noun. This diagram shows how the types of clauses are related. Each type of clause performs a separate function, and each type is introduced by certain markers. Adjective clauses modify nouns and begin with relative pronouns like who, whose, whom, which, and that. Adverb clauses modify verbs and begin with subordinators like after, although, as soon as, because, and more. Noun clauses replace subjects or objects and begin with relative pronouns or subordinators, including who, whoever, whom, whomever, and many more. As you can see, the clause family tree is a little complicated. You saw earlier that an independent clause can stand alone as a simple sentence, as in, the sun shone brightly on the day of the hike. Or it can be combined with another independent clause to form a compound sentence, as in, the sun shone brightly on the day of the hike, and the air was cool. The weaker sister on the family tree, the dependent clause, cannot stand alone. Instead, it combines with an independent or main clause to form what is known as a complex sentence. By the way, in grammar, complex doesn't necessarily mean complicated. It simply identifies a sentence that contains an independent clause and a dependent clause. Let's look at the parts of this next sentence. By the time the sun started to go down, the hikers had reached the halfway point of the climb. Can you find the main or independent clause? The main clause is highlighted in blue. The hikers had reached the halfway point of the climb. By the time the sun started to go down is a subordinate clause. So what we have here is a complex sentence. I should mention here that anytime a subordinate adverb clause starts off a complex sentence, a comma should follow it. Because the mountain air was damp, starting a campfire was difficult. Notice the comma? Now, how about testing your knowledge of clauses on the next few sentences? See if you can tell if the sentences are simple, compound, or complex. A. When the sun went down, the temperature on the mountain fell dramatically. B. The guide put more wood on the fire, and the hikers pulled on their thermal jackets. C. Several members of the group could not sleep that night because of the cold. Sentence A is complex. B is compound. And C is simple. Did that last one confuse you? If you saw the word because and thought, adverb clause subordinator, this must be a complex sentence, you were mistaken. Remember that a clause contains a subject and a verb. Because of the cold is a phrase. It doesn't have a subject or verb. Consider this revision. Several members of the group could not sleep that night because the temperature dropped dramatically. I've added a subject and verb after the subordinator because to make a complex sentence. Knowledge of independent and dependent clauses can help you avoid some common writing mistakes. Let's look at 4 common mistakes. Error number 1, the sentence that isn't a sentence. Yes, once in a while, even advanced writers forget that every sentence needs at least one clause, and every clause has a subject and verb. Because of the cold is just a phrase. It's not a clause. Near the edge of the steep cliff and hanging by 3 fingers from a narrow ledge are also phrases. We can't find any subject-verb relationships in any of them. It's easy to get lost in a long string of words and forget to check for the components of clauses. Look at this example. Piercing the sky with its jagged peak, protected from the assault of arrogant climbers by a river of boulders. It's not a sentence. What's missing? An independent clause is missing. This string of words includes several phrases, but there's no subject-verb relationship. Readers are left asking, what pierced the sky? We don't know. The writer will need to add an independent clause to correct the error. With the addition of a subject and verb, the string of words becomes a sentence. Piercing the sky with its jagged peak and protected from the assault of arrogant climbers by a river of boulders, Mount Precarious dared the foolhardy to scale its height. Error number 2. The sentence fragment. Although they hadn't slept much the night before. It's a sentence fragment. It has a subject and a verb, but the presence of the subordinator although makes it a dependent clause, which cannot stand alone. It needs to be joined to a main clause if it's going to survive as a sentence. Let's try it again. Although they hadn't slept much the night before, the group agreed to enjoy the view from the top of Mount Precarious for a couple of hours before descending. Now we have a complex sentence with a dependent clause and an independent clause. Error number 3, the run-on sentence. Two independent clauses running together without a coordinator between them create chaos in the reader's mind. Take this example. The hikers were tired when they finished the climb. No one wanted to leave the summit. It's a run-on sentence. You can correct this error in a number of ways. Solution 1, create a compound sentence by adding a comma and a coordinator. The hikers were tired when they finished the climb, but no one wanted to leave the summit. Or Solution 2, create a complex sentence. Although the hikers were tired when they finished the climb, no one wanted to leave the summit. There are other ways to correct the sentence as well. Error number 4, the comma splice. Some writers mistakenly put 2 or more independent clauses together with no more than a comma to separate each clause. For example, the importance of heavy socks on a long hike cannot be understated. They prevent blisters. The comma is not strong enough to separate the 2 independent clauses. A coordinator like for should follow the comma, or the 2 clauses could be punctuated as separate sentences. Or you could subordinate one of the clauses. Because they prevent blisters, the importance of sturdy socks on a long hike cannot be understated. It's time to review. You've seen that a clause is a group of words with at least one subject and at least one verb. There are 2 kinds of clauses, independent and dependent. Dependent clauses come in 3 flavors: adjective, adverb, and noun. These form the basis of simple, compound, and complex sentences. Errors with clauses usually include missing subjects or verbs and mistakes with punctuation. I hope the video has given you a better understanding of the basic building blocks of sentences, independent and dependent clauses. You can Google them for more information if you want. Thanks for watching. Keep writing and stay on the lookout for clauses.